The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to East Lindsey again, everybody. Now today I've got an interesting village for you, one which used to have an ostrich farm until very recently. We'll be seeing that at the beginning of this video. Otherwise, there are two settlements within this one. There's one called Moorby and the other one which is called Claxby. Together they make Claxby with Moorby. Claxby with Moorby, Clacker's Farm with Moor Farm. Next up in East Lindsey we have the parish of Claxby with Moorby, a strong contender for being the most sparsely populated in the entire district. The main village here is Moorby, some 4 miles away from Horncastle, located on the B1183. It only has 12 houses. Claxby as a village no longer exists. It's a deserted medieval settlement which can only be seen in the form of earthworks from the gated road that passes through it. Whilst there may not be much in the way of housing, there are farms aplenty here, scattered all over the place, complementing the limited collection of residences. Both villages used to have churches, but neither of them stand now. Claxby's fell down in 1748, whilst Moorby's was purposefully pulled down in the 1980s. That same decade, Claxby with Moorby was formed. Both villages commanded separate parishes at one time until they were merged together to form the current boundaries. Most of the main landmarks here are all within Moorby. They are an old pub called the Royal Oak, a former schoolhouse which is now used as a dwelling, and an old Methodist chapel that serves as an outbuilding for another. Moorby has a few bits that you wouldn't necessarily know about, and there are no visible clues on the map either. One of them is a former prisoner of war camp, and another is a former landing ground once used by the RFC. And did you know Moorby was also a village where you could get ostrich products like eggs, meat and feather dusters? Let's go. Here we have the map of the area from 1900, and you can clearly see here that Moorby and Claxby, or Claxby Pluckacre to give it its Sunday name, used to be two separate parishes. The external boundaries of these two old parishes are the same today, but of course the one between them both has been dissolved. This is all one area now. As you can see, the main village at this time was Moorby, and it still is, owing to the fact that Claxby is mostly earthworks, being a deserted medieval village of course. There is a road that links them both, but to use it you have to operate gates at either end. Around both of these villages there was a lot of farmland, and that's pretty much the same today. Note this area here between the villages. It was to become something during World War II, but you would likely never know looking on modern maps of the area. Let's get started with Moorby, which has always been where this one's main landmarks are. A simple circular village, Moorby once had a pub called the Royal Oak, a chapel and a school. None of those operate in the way they did originally. Neither does this church, simply because it doesn't stand anymore. Driving into Moorby from the north means we have to pass Whitehouse Farm. It was here until 2023, where ostriches were reared for meat, eggs and feathers. Ostrich farms aren't as common as you may think in the UK, and they're certainly uncommon in Lincolnshire. We only have a small number of ostrich farms in the whole country, but since 1980 they've seen a bit of a boom in business. You see, we've been farming ostriches in this country for more than 150 years, but initially they were bred solely for their skins and feathers. Today, ostriches are bred all over the world, and their meat is readily available in countries such as the US, Australia and Canada. Here though, the market only really took off properly after World War II, when people started to realise the health benefits that their meat and eggs could provide. Ostrich meat is very low in fat. Even so, finding an ostrich farm in Lincolnshire is still a rarity. This is a county that prides itself on arable farming mainly. Owned and operated by the Grundy family, Oslinc, who were based at this very farm, had been breeding ostriches since 1994. They had 27 birds that spent their days grazing in the fields, whilst the farm sold all manner of ostrich-related produce. That included things like high-quality ostrich eggs and ostrich steak, but they also made feather dusters made from the birds' fabulous plumage. Unfortunately now, Oslinc have gone, as the owners have retired from farming what they called exotic meat. Let's start our walk around Moorby in this southeastern corner, where you can see lots of great earthworks in a field off Highgate Lane. Moorby is certainly nothing like it would have been centuries ago. This is a place that shrunk considerably. Today, it only has 12 houses. In the centre of Moorby there's a village green, although this isn't your typical one, it has to be said. This small grassy area is the site of an old farmyard, which was once probably owned by the Scrivelsby estate. So here we have the site of the church. Moorby has had no church since this one was pulled down in the 1980s. Today, the locals can attend church services at Wilkesby on the third Sunday in every month. What happened to this one then? Well, dedicated to All Saints, this church was a small structure in an early English style. It was made of Ancaster stone with brick bands and comprised a chancel, a nave, a vestry, a north porch and a small square tower with one bell and a spire. The parish registers dated from 1561 and included those of Claxby Pluckacre. It was all thoroughly restored by James Fowler in 1866, but he left a large and very early font. It was struck by lightning in 1893 and had to be restored again in 1911. In 1964, Pevsner noted a square font that included images of a virgin, the sun and the moon, some kneeling and seated figures, a cadaver and an angel. The vestry held a 16th century stone panel with the image of a man playing bagpipes and two dancing figures. By 1976, the church had become redundant thanks to declining attendances. It was decided not to save it, and it was demolished in 1982, with its site eventually sold, gifted or leased for other uses. Here's something else that's no longer in use. At the junction where the B1183 meets Back Lane, you can find Moorby's one and only former pub. This was the Royal Oak, which ceased to be a licensed premises quite some time ago now. It forms one of Moorby's 12 dwellings. It was a lack of inhabitants that led to the closure of this pub. That, coupled with the rising costs of maintenance, rendered this one obsolete. Moorby's nearest watering hole now is still a pub called the Royal Oak. It's the one in Mareham Le Fen. Okay, so in front of the old Royal Oak, there's a stream, or what's meant to be a stream. As you can see here, it's a bit dry at the moment. I imagine in the winter there is usually some water in that. You can cross this stream by using a footbridge, which is what I'm currently standing on, and that'll take you into this little paddock or whatever it is. It's a public right-of-way. I've no idea where it goes because this isn't part of the route. The reason I'm stood on this bridge really is because it'll introduce the next thing. This building right here. Next on Back Lane we have an old Methodist chapel, still standing but now in use as an outhouse for a private residence. This modest building was opened as a chapel for the Wesleyan Methodists in 1840. The last service was held in 1971 and the unrestored building is now used as a store. The last main landmark on the walk is the old school. This has ties to other former schools in the area. Built in 1856, this was part of a school board that served Moorby, Wilkesby, Claxby Pluckacre and Wood Enderby. It was actually a replacement for another school built literally in the previous year of 1855. This one was enlarged in 1872 and could hold up to 104 children if it was full. However, it never was. For example, in 1913, the attendance was only 48. It would eventually close in the 1950s, but it was actually more to do with goings-on in Revesby than Moorby. In 1958, the school at Revesby was threatened with closure after the headmistress retired, but it didn't actually close until the late 20th century. It was kept open because instead the decision was made to close Moorby as part of a development plan. Its pupils would then transfer to Mareham Le Fen. Ever since, the old school in Moorby has been used as a house, and it remains so today. Right, so we've walked all the way around Moorby. That was very easy, very small village. On my way around the village, I had a chance meeting with the guy who lives in the old Royal Oak pub, and he was telling me that it's so difficult to find information about this little village. I must admit, I did struggle a little bit to find some bits about this place, but hopefully what I presented to you there is a bit more than what you guys may have found yourselves. Now, before we leave Moorby behind, we have got one other thing I do need to cover here. It's actually between Moorby and Claxby. It's on a little road just off the road to my right hand side. It's to do with the war. Do you know what it is? Well, you're about to. Our next area concerns a piece of land between Moorby and Claxby. To the naked eye it looks pretty innocuous, and being totally honest, a lot of it is just farmland these days. However, I wouldn't be covering this if it didn't have something of note. Located here during World War II, Moorby was the site of a prisoner of war camp, number 79. Often known as Camp 79 by the locals, this was a standard Second World War working facility for German soldiers. It was actually constructed, though, by Italian prisoners of war. Now demolished, its site was later used to house displaced persons and finally international students doing seasonal work on local farms. After the war, it became a poultry farm. Although it's been cleared and you can't see much if any remains of the camp buildings, you can still make out the shape of the site and what appears to be a slip between the service area and the accommodation areas. Ruined buildings can be seen on old photographs which do the rounds online. Buildings-wise, this would have had all the standards of a typical World War II prisoner of war camp. It would have likely had water towers, offices, an officer's mess, a canteen, guard rooms, barrack huts, ablution blocks, cell blocks, a medical facility and recreation rooms. Accommodation-wise, there were 36 living huts at Moorby. Germans who populated this place were sent out to work as farm labourers in the local area. The camp was in use until 1948 and the last of the living huts was taken down in 2003. On the subject of war, by the way, specifically Moorby's involvement, the village was used in World War I as a landing ground for the RFC. The area used for such purposes is now farmland to the northeast of the village, between it and Low Hamringham. It consisted of two grass landing strips, one 700 yards long and the other 570. In total, the landing ground covered 82 acres, and it was even lit at one point so that it could be used at night. It was in operation between 1916 and 1919 and returned to agricultural use afterwards. Yeah, not the easiest thing to cover this when you consider that most of it has disappeared now and been replaced with the building you can see behind me there. But this is where Camp 79 was, prisoner of war camp for the Italians and then the Germans. So yeah. Bit of wartime history there. I wonder how many of you knew about this place. So to end this episode, we've dealt with Moorby, we've now got to deal with Claxby, or if you will, Claxby Pluckacre, to give it its Sunday name. Now we're off to find Claxby, which has the alternative name of Claxby Pluckacre, as you can see from this old map. Claxby used to be its own parish until 1987, when it was merged with Moorby. In stark contrast to Moorby, Claxby has always had very little. Marked here you can see the site of its former church. Aside from that, most of it is farmland, and getting to it requires a bit of effort. To get to Claxby Pluckacre, you must use a gated road. This is how you know you're deep in the countryside when you see these things. Claxby Pluckacre is both a modern hamlet and a deserted medieval village. It's approximately 5 miles away from Horncastle and currently has a population of just 14 people, or thereabouts. Most of these people live in the small clutch of houses around its handful of farms. There would have been more houses once upon a time. The remains of the deserted village can be seen as earthworks visible between Hall Farm and the Grange. That said, they're not the most pronounced you'll ever see, but they are there. To go with the medieval village was the church dedicated to St Andrew. That no longer stands because it fell down in 1748. It was never rebuilt, although nobody seems to know why. Its last priest was instituted between 1660 and 1662. Whilst nothing remains of it, it too can be seen as earthworks. Every year in July there's an annual pilgrimage to the site of the church. This is accompanied by a silver band from Mereham le Fen, a village we've yet to cover. The band provide music for a service which helps to commemorate the loss of over 250 villages and hamlets in Lincolnshire over the past 4 centuries. Claxby, of course, is one of them. Time to exit Claxby, again via some gates. Now I'm led to believe that the road I'm about to drive down here after coming through that gate is quite a bumpy one. Let's see. So from Ostriches to deserted medieval villages, that's Claxby with Moorby, folks, another very varied place in the Lincolnshire countryside. Next up we have a place synonymous with conflict. We're off to find a battlefield in the next episode, which will tie together handily some bits we've learned in previous East Lindsey adventures. See you tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.